Log 1. I watched every episode of the Huberman Lab Podcast, and here's how it changed my life. I gained on average 3 hours or 180 minutes of focus time back a day. Annualized is over 150 hours or 9,000 minutes of focus time a year. Lowered my phone usage by 2 hours or 120 minutes a day. Annualized is over 100 hours or 6,000 minutes of not being on my phone a year. And I've also gotten better sleep, felt the best I have mentally for a long time, making good progress towards my fitness goals, more satisfied with life, more prepared for the chaos of life, and I'm overall better informed about my biology and what makes me tick. And in the following sections, I'll break down what I have changed, the protocols I have implemented, the reasons for them, as well as cite them whenever possible in the description. This is a calendar view of my schedules. On the left is my schedule before listening to Huberman, what I like to call pre-Huberman, and on the right is my schedule after, what I like to call post-Huberman. For context, I've been logging what I've been doing for a few years, and from those logs, this is what my average day looked like, and with school, work, and life. There are days where it's gonna get more chaotic, but in all cases it floats around these schedules, or at least I try to keep them like this schedule. I've also color coded the calendar, so reds are times where I'm focused, either working on a task, project, learning something, studying something, and this changes based on what I'm working on at that time. Yellows are times where I am in a kind of semi-focus, doing some sort of routine. Light blues are sleep. Purples is when I'm exercising. Greens are times where I'm relaxing, cooling down, taking a break, usually on my phone, watching videos or whatever I'm interested in at that time. I'll be going over each of the calendars, what I'm doing here, what I've changed, but there are a bunch of intangibles and other things I keep in mind that can be associated with these sections, but aren't the main focus of the calendar section, and I'll talk about those after these sections, like mindsets or lifestyle things, etc. But first, I want to show some stats about these calendars to give a more data-driven view of what has changed time-wise, because I love data. This is a chart comparing my time spent pre versus post Huberman, where gray is pre and post is white, and the bars are grouped in the same categories as shown in the calendar's color codes. Just as a PS, my exercise time was not included in these charts as they take the same amount of time for both calendars, so the final percentage, spoiler alert, for the later calendar, the stacked bar chart, is going to be 96%. Since exercise time is about 4% of my day. So it's fine. It doesn't need to be 100% here. First, let's take a look at sleep, where we actually decreased the time spent sleeping by about 45 minutes, which is a decrease of 9%. And oddly enough, I felt more tired sleeping those 8 hours than I did the 7 hours. And I'll talk about that more later. Next, let's look at the relaxing / no focus time. And we also decreased the time spent here by about 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is a decrease of 26%. And for me, at least, this meant spending less time on my phone, social media, games, entertainment, etc. Next, let's look at the semi-focus time, which we decreased by 1 hour, which is a 44% decrease. And this meant optimizing my routines by focus solely on that routine and not having my phone near me at all. Lastly, the focus time. Here is a big increase in focus time, adding 3 hours of focus time, which is a 38% increase. This increase is mainly from optimizing and shaving some time off my other activities, as you can see in this bar chart, and building in more room for this focus time, dedicating focus time into my schedule. Now onto the stacked bar chart, and this chart breaks down how much of my day each category occupies. And the point I want to make here is that everyone has 24 hours in a day, and how you choose to spend that time is up to you. Optimizing your schedule by reducing time spent on activities you care less about and reallocating it to things that matter is always possible, though it can be challenging to visualize it at first. I faced the same issue of not knowing exactly where my time was going, so I started tracking and charting how I spent my time, and I noticed I was spending too much time on my phone during semi-focus times or relaxing periods, and not enough in focus work. Over time, I gradually reallocated that time. Though it wasn't easy at first, I often relapsed into old habits or overcompensated and burned out. It's a slow, ongoing process, and everyone has their own timelines, and I'm still refining it. But for now, I've reached a balance that works well for me, and I hope everyone does too. If you're looking to identify areas for improvement, tracking and visualizing your time can be a very eye-opening exercise. At least it was for me. It helps you see how your day is structured and can help make changes to how you use your time to do things that truly fulfill you. But enough of those data vises. Let's get into the morning section of the calendars. The morning section is when I wake up to 12 p.m. The left one is pre-Huberman, the right is post. Just as a reminder, pre-Huberman, we are awake at 8 a.m. while post, we are awake at 6:30 a.m. And for me, at least, I have been experimenting with what times are good for me to wake up, and 6:30 worked best for me. This is something that everyone needs to experiment on their own, as some people are more nighttime oriented, some morning, some have jobs or life circumstances that need them to stay up late, etc. For pre, waking up at 8 a.m. is fine, not as optimal as 6:30 a.m. for me, but the issues I had were what I did when I woke up. I would have my phone near my bed, so when I woke up, I would stay in bed, doom scroll. Then afterwards, when I realized I spent too much time here, I would eventually get out of my bed and start my day. This would take an hour away, and I would feel terrible and make no progress in my day. So I really tried to make this time work better for me. So this is what I did in post. When I wake up, I usually have an alarm at 6:30 a.m. And the biggest thing is that my phone is not near my bed, but the alarm is loud enough to wake me up. This not only forces me to get out of my bed to turn off the annoying alarm, but it makes it so that I slowly train my brain to go, well, I'm out of my bed, might as well just start my day. Then I start my day doing my morning routine of skincare, brushing teeth, etc. As you can also see, my morning routine for post takes 15 minutes, while my morning routine for pre takes 30 minutes. This is the effect of me bringing my phone with me and not having systems to lock me out of the addicting apps on my phone. And something I remember Cal Newport saying during his episode with Huberman is that a phone is just a really cool metal box if you throw out all the social media apps on the phone. I'm not as dedicated or diligent as Newport is, but I did start using Roots, which is an iOS app. Sorry, Android users, I don't know what the equivalent is for you, but do some Googling. It's an iOS app that blocks certain apps and websites on your phone. So I use their free tier, just block out major distractors, and this saves me 15 minutes here, but it also slowly but surely lowers my addiction to those apps and has ripple effects throughout my day and then my life. For pre, after my morning routine, I'm eating my breakfast, which I no longer do for posts, which I will talk about in a more dedicated section. Playing on my phone, then I would do my yoga, stretching, but I would be on my phone watching a video and not meditating or thinking about the day. So this extends the duration of these activities to in a little bit of an unpredictable level for me. And that is how my morning ends for pre. For post though, after my morning routine, I added and removed some things based on Huberman's recommendations. A couple being that I would go outside for a walk, do breathing exercises, introspect, and at the same time get some lower angular sunlight to spike my cortisol in the morning and set my circadian rhythm. And all of this should happen ideally within the first hour when you wake up. To explain the circadian rhythm a bit, Huberman does it way better than me, but just as a brief, the circadian rhythm is a internal 24-hour cycle that influences various physiological processes, primarily regulating wakefulness and sleepiness. It also ensures that our body temperature, metabolism, mood, and other immune system functions in a rhythmical pattern that aligns with the day-night cycle of the earth. And exposure to natural light, especially in the morning, plays a critical role in setting this rhythm. So natural light also helps regulate cortisol levels, creating a peak in the morning and lowering levels in the afternoon and evening. This pattern supports alertness during the day and then aids in falling asleep at night. And having consistent morning light exposure can also improve mood, metabolism, and there are a bunch of other great health benefits. Then I would return home, do some yoga, some stretching to warm me up and get some exercise in the morning while also meditating and thinking about what to do for the day. Then I would start my focus time. Just to be clear, I did not immediately start off with 2-hour focus blocks. That is insane. But it was something I would work towards, and I will go over how I got there in a more dedicated section too. Sorry if I'm leaving a lot of cliffhangers, but at least to give you some more information to explain the reason for the 2-hour focus sessions and how I kind of landed on that. Huberman also talks about this in a way clearer fashion than me, but I'll give it my best shot. So the ideal time spent focusing on something is around 90 minutes, which follows our ultradian cycles, which are 90 minutes long. And these ultradian cycles are time periods where our brain activity and our brain environment is really optimal for working on highly focused work. And during this time, there will be dips and peaks of alertness and distraction. Then it slowly tapers off until the 2-hour mark. So I've chosen this time period to focus on something, and then I will have like a cool down period or a break for 15 minutes long doing other less demanding tasks like email, etc. Then I would re-enter another 2-hour focus session until 12 p.m. to start my afternoon. All of this, I would not have my phone near me, using Roots and not being distracted on my phone. Adding in these behavioral changes made it possible to go from pre, where I had no focus sessions in the morning, to now having 2 focus sessions for post and still completing my morning routine. On to the afternoon section, which is from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's a little weird, to stick with me. For pre, I started this time doing a focus session for 2 hours, but compared to the focus sessions during post, these times were a bit more distracted as I didn't really implement the phone rule I have in post and was kind of getting distracted by it, multitasking. While in post, I was working on one thing at a time, being very mindful of my phone and the effects of multitasking. Then I would eat my lunch, cooling down, being on my phone, etc. I do the same thing for post, but for post, I decided to not eat breakfast and opt to move my lunch to be around 12 p.m. Then for both pre and post, after eating lunch and cooling down, I would enter another 2-hour focus session. Usually for me, after this block, I would get a bit groggy and tired from working and eating, so I would do my exercise to get some energy back and to get some movement in. For my exercise, I don't go to the gym that often and mainly work out at home, and I do have some weights at home, so that makes it better. For pre, my exercise was really all over the place and consisted mainly of full body every other day and did not have much structure to my workouts, mainly push-ups, crunches, sit-ups, squats, jumping exercises, and jogging. For post though, I changed up my schedule and modeled my workout routine to what Huberman has posted about. So for Huberman's exercise splits, on Monday he does legs, and I also follow him here. On Tuesday he does heat and cold exposure / recovery. I do not have the equipment, so I take this as a rest day and a cold shower basically. On Wednesday he does torso and neck. I do the same thing. On Thursday he does cardiovascular training, which is about 35 minutes of moderate intensity cardio, about 75 to 80% maximum effort. And for Sundays he does long endurance, which is 30 minutes of zone 2 cardio, which is cardio where you are running, but you can still hold a conversation, kind of like how I'm doing right now. For me, I combined his Thursday and Sunday, lower the intensity bit because that's crazy. I'm not there yet, and add my Sunday to be a rest day or a backup day if I miss anything. Then Friday and Saturday, I follow Huberman's schedule. Friday is a high intensity interval training or HIIT day, and Saturday are arms, calves, and neck. If I miss any of these days, then I will shift it or move that day into a rest day. I really try not to miss any of these days, so I move things around to better fit my schedule, and I'll go over some more exercise concepts and things to do and things I do in a more dedicated section. For pre, that will be the end of the afternoon section. For post, after exercising, we'll go into another 2-hour focus session. Onto the evening section, which is from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. For pre, after exercising, I will go into a 1-hour focus session. Then I will eat my dinner, some family time, cooling down, being on my phone, etc. And enter another 1-hour focus session to end my evening. For post, I will enter my dinner time. That's a weird way of saying eating food at dinner time, but whatever. And ideally go for a little walk outside to not only get some evening sunlight to set my circadian rhythm, but also get some movement in to digest my food better and quicker. And then enter a 2-hour focus session to end my evening. Then last but not least, we move on to the night section. The night section is from 9 p.m. to when I sleep. For both pre and post, I shower around 9 p.m. and the same thing happens here. Like in the morning routine, my shower time for pre runs about 15 minutes longer than post because in pre, I am bringing my phone into the bathroom and needing to find that perfect YouTube video to have on while I shower. But for post, I do not bring my phone most of the time, and this not only saves me 15 minutes not needing to find a YouTube video, but it also allows me to just have some shower thoughts to ruminate on things and be able to think to myself in the shower. While I'm pre, I'm distracted by the YouTube video, which I will probably not remember anything from anyway. For pre, after I'm done showering, I would enter a focus session for 1 hour and 45 minutes. This is usually my most productive time for pre, but it would really disrupt my sleep as I would get pretty engrossed in something with bright lights on and get very inconsistent sleep, as I would usually just go until I felt sleepy or realize it's a little too late and I really need to go to bed. Usually sleeping from 11:45 p.m. to 8 a.m. Sleeping for 8 hours and 15 minutes. For post, after showering, I would do a focus session for 45 minutes. Main reason for this is I have learned that there is usually a blip of alertness of an hour or so before bedtime, and that is usually where people get some stress and start thinking of tomorrow and other issues. I don't know what they would be, but we want to anticipate this and use it to do other things. In my case, this session was more planning, thinking about what to do for the next day and setting up tomorrow me for a smoother transition period to focusing better. Then I would enter a deliberate cool down period, lowering lights, taking it a bit easy, not focusing on work to ease into my sleep at 11 p.m. waking up at 6:30 a.m., sleeping for 7 hours and 30 minutes. And I would make a deliberate practice to put my phone in a spot that made me get up from my bed when I eventually had to wake up, which kind of sucks. But systems in place. So earlier I was kind of talking about how even though I slept less amount of time, I felt better. This was one of the main reasons. And I'm also not a robot. And having a couple late nights or nights out partying, having fun in life is perfectly fine. But I just try to stay consistent and close to this schedule as best as I can. And I really try to follow these protocols and concepts that Matt Walker talked about in their sleep episode. First is the acronym QQRT, which stands for quantity, which refers to getting enough hours of sleep each night, typically 7 to 9 hours for most adults. Quality, which is the depth and restfulness of sleep. This is kind of hard to measure, but just take it as it is. Regularity, which is about having a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up at the same times daily. Timing, which focuses on aligning sleep patterns with the natural circadian rhythms, ideally sleeping during nighttime. Second, the usage of meditation and breathing exercises while in bed to stop you from thinking too much and allowing you to get into sleep faster, because we all have those thoughts when we're just laying in bed looking up at the ceiling and our mind is racing a million miles an hour. So doing some of these will help. Third is the practices before entering sleep. So lowering your lights, don't do anything too exciting or crazy, relax the mind, etc. Lastly is to be careful of the associations you have with your bed. And ideally, the only thing you should do in your bed is to sleep. So I try not to be on my phone while going to sleep or when I wake up or doing other activities in my bed. Once in a while, things happen. That is fine. But just don't make it a consistent thing. Consistency is key, and that is how we break and make habits. That was a very high level overview of what my calendars look like. And this exercise of mapping out my calendar also really pushed me to really face the reality of my decisions and what is happening with my time. And let me tell you, there is a lot of reallocating of my time. Adding new behaviors and all of this was built on a really strong desire to change how I was approaching my days. Because for Brie, I was honestly feeling kind of awful about my days. To the viewers looking at it, it may have looked fine, and even now I kind of look at it objectively and it's not that bad, but the best way I can describe it, living it and looking back at that schedule, it felt icky. It's like that feeling when you're touching something that's really sticky and you can't get it off you. Now picture that happening to your brain. That is kind of what it felt like when I had that schedule. It just felt really icky and like very brain foggy. But with post-Huberman schedule, understanding my biology and with all the changes, that feeling is slowly going away, and I'm feeling better about my usage of time as I fine-tune my schedule, but it's not perfect and it's a continuous work in progress. Now, as I promised earlier, I will go into more of the nitty-gritty details and talk about what I specifically am implementing, like mindsets and other concepts I keep in mind when moving about day to day. This is the lifestyle section, and it's a mixture of things I have learned in life from my own experiences and listening to Huberman, and is consisted mainly of rules and things that are rock solid in my life and I really go back to when things hit the fan. First is there is really no one size fit all solution, and most people will use a combination of solutions. Any tool that you develop to cope or deal with things in your life will always be better than the tool someone else gives you to deal with your problems, and this control should give you a sense of peace and control of your situation. This is what I have done with every piece of info that has come into my brain. I take pieces, maybe a very big or small piece, and I shape it into my puzzle of life. And you should do the same thing with everything that is said to you, including what I have said, am going to say, and what future me says. Also, paraphrasing from what Crave Conniver said in their Huberman episode, people really need to value themselves, and they need to take personal responsibility to stop their crippling behaviors and to take action to build a healthier life. That is something I constantly remind myself of, is that most people, including myself, want a better life. Well, maybe masochists want a worse life, but they can do what they want. We can ignore them. But I take personal responsibility to at least uplift myself to a better standard of living, to be more empathetic towards myself. And what you saw earlier took a couple of years of work, and honestly, it's not gonna stop. I will keep on taking continuous action to better myself. And it all starts from behaviors that promote a good, healthy life. And supplements and drugs and prescriptions can help, but they're not a long-term solution. And I'm weary of using drugs because your body will balance it out. So if you gain something using drugs, you will most likely lose something else. like the side effects. That's why I want to focus on behaviors first. On that note, I do not smoke anything nor drink any alcohol unless it's for social gatherings, but even then, I really try to limit it. And man, living healthy is super tough with how cheap calories are, how easy it is to just sit there doom scrolling. And I'm a huge dessert person. I love desserts, but I know that eating too many desserts and cheap calories will ruin what I have built. But I know that everything needs to be challenged. Everything needs to be pushed slightly past their limit, because that is where the zone is. The zone of learning, the zone of growth, the zone of adaptation. It's all in that sweet spot. Pun intended. A bunch of guests have also said this, and that there is no value to thinking negatively, and that means by default, the always better state to be in is to be positive. I do understand why people are cynical. Man, I was cynical, but I do not like being negative. When I'm negative, every word that comes out of someone's mouth, I interpret it in like the worst possible way. But if I'm positive, life is more fun, more bright, less crazy, less insane. That's just how it is. Being cynical and negative is also literally poison to your social life, which means it's poison for your mental health, which means it's poison for your physical health. And if you've ever been in a room with a person who is cynical, too negative all the time, it's not fun. They suck out the energy out of the room. Fun possibilities become negative rambles of how it will never work out. Everyone slowly distances themselves from this person. And I not only do not want to be that person, I want to be the opposite. The person who is always laughing, having fun, seeing the world with bright eyes. That is what I want to be, because it's more fun and fulfilling. And it just feels better. I don't want to be the person who says, see, I told you so. I want to be the person who's just laughing, having fun all along the way. It might seem naive and stupid, but I think that's a better way of living my life, at least. I strive to always have fun in a given situation as best as we can. Look on the brighter side of things. We are the glass that is half full. And yes, sometimes I'm tired. And yes, sometimes I can't be bothered, but we try to be positive as best as we can be. Another thing I like to keep in mind is comparing yourself to others is usually pretty bad for your happiness, as you usually compare yourself to others that have more or better lives, quote unquote, and that usually spawns jealousy and envy. And as the great philosophers and poets of the world have said, that is the root of much of the evils in the world: jealousy and envy. There are ways to use comparison to your advantage, and I may make another video to go real in depth about it, but for most people, and myself as well, if comparison spawns jealousy and envy, it's usually best to just avoid comparing yourself to others and learn to be content with what you have with yourself and what you know now. And it's cliche, but practice gratitude. Be grateful and be aware of certain luxuries you have, because it could always be way worse. So learn to be content with yourself. That's speaking to you and to me. And on that note, I think happiness is very hard, and honestly, I've been trying to find it, and I'm still trying to find it, what my true version of happiness is. I have felt a variety of emotions: excitement, joy, bliss, fulfillment, blah blah blah. But I don't know if that is happiness. But here are some overarching things that have at least invoked those emotions for me, and I've heard others have been invoked by this too. Thinking of delightful things, looking back at memories, being in the moment, enjoying the moment, helping others, asking for help to give them happiness too. Sounds like a weird concept, but kind of an Ouroboros of happiness. Giving to folks, etc. And this might just be like a personal thing of mine, but at least building in as much focus time and maker time as I can, as this is kind of where a lot of my fulfillment comes from, and the time to really build cool stuff comes from. So just doing cool things, building cool things for an extended period of time really brings out this sense of fulfillment, of joy for me, just because I'm just like, I don't know, a creator, I guess. I like building stuff, is the best I can put it. Then onto a little weird tangent, but I think it's very important, is that I have a really powerful inner voice. And I think most people also have a pretty powerful inner voice, and it controls and it's changed how I felt about almost everything in my life. And it's honestly where this channel and this video kind of spawned from, is this inner voice. And as powerful and as much good as the inner voice can do, it's pretty chaotic most of the time. It can be very easy to go negative, and it's taken me a really long time, and I honestly don't really have that much control over it, but I have more control over it than I did before. It's taken me a long time to just control this thing, to be able to organize it in a way that is like positive and pushes things and moves you towards the goals you want to be in. A few ways I like to keep it in check, our inner voice, is literally just to talk to myself. I know it seems crazy, but your inner voice can quickly become chatter, which is the constant rambling of unstructured thoughts in your head. And it's shown to worsen your mental state, sap your mental energy, and makes your subconscious work on useless drivel. But this is like normal human condition, and you will experience this. And a good way to structure and to implement guardrails in this chatter is to literally just say the words you are thinking to yourself. I literally just talk to myself sometimes. You can also write it down, but for at least me, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, I don't know. But I just talk to myself, and it's the most easiest and effective way for me to like lower this chatter. And then it sounds even more insane, but then you can have a dialogue with this inner voice. And I swear, I do not have a mental condition. Well, not that I know of, but when you're talking to yourself, you can catch when things don't make sense or are going negative. Then you can kind of steer it back where you want your inner voice to go. And then onto the more, I guess, normal things to do to combat your chatter. You can distance your identity from the chatter, give advice to yourself, like you're a friend, family member, or some stranger. You can also distance the time horizon of the chatter. So ask what future you or past you would think of this, and then it can be for any amount of time. You can also use your environment. So go to places that give you comfort, or think of how big or grand something is, like, I don't know, the universe, and then just realize like your problems and the issues you have are very small in comparison. See, this is a kind of a good case of the utilization of comparison. Then on to the next one. We are very disconnected to our future selves, and we need a constant reminder of our future selves to be able to make more future-oriented decisions. And you're more likely to make decisions for your future self if you know who they are and are constantly reminded about them. And to do this, you must develop your own sense of agency and develop a sense of excitement and purpose for your life, and continue to model your life for the future. And also, really enough about the future, embrace your death. Don't be afraid of it. Really immerse yourself in it and understand that, it is inevitable. And once we understand that, we start to care less about the stupid shackles society puts on us, and we start to live life how we want. We also in the West do so much to avoid death, only caring about the quantity of life we have and not about the quality of life we have. Here's a brain my inner voice cooked up. Hopefully it cooks. I do what I do now for the me now, but I also do what I do now so the future's me's now is a bit better. And when I think of future me, I try to think about what would future me think of what I'm doing right now. And yes, you have no idea what the future will look like, but the exercise of projecting yourself into your future self and trying to view what current me is doing and seeing if it aligns with what future me wants is very helpful in guiding your actions to your goals. Now on to my diet, I guess, or like my fasting thingy my bobber that I do. I don't really have a diet, but I do try to keep what I eat to be clean, whole foods, avoiding processed foods, staying under 2,000 calories a day. And I want to keep my feeding window from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. with 1 hour of wiggle room. And before I go into the benefits of fasting, let's go back to the calendar because I did promise this. For I had a feeding window from 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., which means the time where I started eating to the time where I stopped eating for the day. And this feeding window is about 10 hours and 30 minutes long, and that gives me a fast for 13 hours and 30 minutes. For post, I have a feeding window from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m., a 7-hour feeding window, shrinking my feeding window by 3 hours. That means I have a fast that lasts 17 hours, increasing my fast by 3 hours. Now, what are the benefits of this? Well, first, I never really felt that good eating breakfast anyway, so I was going to remove that meal eventually from my life. So this was a good reason for it. But if you don't want to remove breakfast, then I would just try to keep those meals in a feeding window of about 8 hours. Second is that restricted caloric intake, especially when combined with time-restricted feeding practices, fast basically, has been shown to favor fat loss over loss of muscle or other tissues. Fasting alters the metabolism, which shifts the body's energy uses to favor burning more fat. This metabolic adaptation can be beneficial for achieving weight loss goals more effectively. That is what I want, so that's why I'm doing it. And caloric restriction has been associated with increased longevity in experimental models, extending a lifespan by about 10%, even when fasting is not involved. So there is potential long-term health benefits beyond weight loss, but that's not the main reason. It's supplementary. So with all this in mind, I try to increase my time fasting, and dropping a meal made it easier to be under 2,000 calories a day. As I said earlier, this is a mishmash of stuff, so now I'm going to talk about dopamine. And dopamine is what I like to call the motivation or reward chemical. It's hardwired to some processes, but it's also pretty subjective, and we can control what dopamine is applied to. For example, for some people, drawing gives them a lot of dopamine, so they're rewarded and then motivated to draw more. But this same group of people might hate driving, and vice versa. Some people love driving, get a dopamine from it, drive more, and might hate drawings, get no dopamine from it, and do not draw at all. So find behavioral ways to get dopamine for things that better your life, otherwise known as good habit building. And one thing to know about is dopamine does not care what is being done. That's why it can go haywire a lot. For me, the best ways to, getting the needed dopamine to build out good habits is doing things in succession with something that already gives me dopamine. Attaching a sense of fulfillment to the action because, it is subjective. Gamifying and building actual rewards around the action is also great. And then making it easy, repeatable, and occasionally novel or new for that action. And this concept can also be applied in the reverse order. And if you don't attach any dopamine to things, then you won't do those things, aka breaking a habit. So don't attach a sense of fulfillment to that action. Make it really hard to do, boring, and not repeatable. Punish yourself if you do that action. Well, depends on how bad you want to do it. And a weird one, but it makes sense based on these concepts, is when you actively do not do an action, reward yourself for not doing it. So attaching dopamine to the act of not doing something also helps avoid that action. I also try to stick to the rule that missing one day is fine, but never twice in a row. This applies to working out, to supplements, and all other protocols. Then last but not least, for the lifestyle section at least, be okay with being bored. Not every second of my life do I have to be thinking, looking at something that occupies my attention. Sometimes it's okay to just be there. Be still, unassuming, without a thought in mind. This is different than being tired and potatoing out. It's a deliberate action to put away everything that is sapping my attention and being okay with myself. Being bored. This is more of an anecdotal thing with no real science, but having some time to myself where I literally do nothing. I don't build it into my calendar, but it mostly happens in focus time, where sometimes I'm too overwhelmed or things are too chaotic. That calm and boredom really resets my mind. So I would say be okay with being bored. It's okay. Oh boy, this is gonna be long. That was already long, but on to the mindset section. This is the mindset section, and these are mindsets that I keep in mind and continue to adopt. For me, I use these by keeping them in my mind, like a mindset would when I encounter situations that they apply to. This is much more intangible, and I have not really designed the best way to track the data on this, but based on the science, it does seep into my life, and it does help me with a bunch of other stuff, and it really holds myself throughout my days. So a big thing about mindsets is that they're one of the few things you can really control. They're very fluid and have massive ripple effects throughout your life, as they can change how you think, how you view things, how you interact and understand the outer world and your inner world. Second is that you can have literally any mindset you want. This is truly a pick your own adventure game, but I want to make it clear that just knowing these mindsets exist is in itself powerful. But truly take advantage of these mindsets, there needs to be a daily effort to remind yourself you are first in control of your mind and to continuously apply these mindsets. Now to the specific mindsets themselves. The foundation of the mindset is the placebo effect, or even the act of thinking something will influence you, even though the actual thing has no effect, like taking a sugar pill compared to an actual antibiotic pill. This is the foundation that powers the effects of mindsets. Believing something will change you, and the placebo effect is the most studied effect, as it is constantly being tested in the control group of any experiment, and in some cases have produced results that are close to the effects of some pharmaceuticals. Now on to the growth versus fixed mindset. This is a very well-known mindset, and literally everyone talks about it, and I would be remiss to not talk about it because it is a brilliant mindset. For those who may not have heard of these mindsets, the growth mindset is a mindset that no matter what age or circumstance you happen to be in, you have the ability to grow, to learn, and to continue to improve in whatever field you are in, and you have infinite potential. Fixed mindset is the opposite. It's the mindset that you're fixed in your skill, talents, and experiences, and you can't grow from this point. Most people showcase the differences in growth and fixed mindsets in words, but I kind of want to do something different. This is a graph of how I visualize these mindsets. First, I want to take a look at the fixed mindset. With a fixed mindset, I imagine that whatever you think of your abilities, you view it as a flat line, and you assume you can't budge from this slope. And when you try to change your curve, it does not budge. It's a fixed, non-increasing slope. The growth mindset says you can move this slope. It will change and grow. And this slope is going to be different for all types of people. Some people bounce up and go down. For some, it's going to go down at first and then explode up. Some people will stay flat for a while, then grow. The overall idea is in the growth mindset, you can change that slope. It's going to take time and it won't be immediate, but having this belief will slowly change your life. believe in your growth slope. Don't believe you have a fixed slope. Now on to praise and performance. There was an amazing study on praise and performance. If you want to learn more about the specific study, I have linked the part where Huberman talks about it in the description. But the gist of the study was those who were praised for their effort on a given cognitive task performed better in the following cognitive tasks than the ones praised for their intelligence. And not only did the effort praise increase that group score, but the intelligence praise actually made that group perform worse than what they did before. So the takeaway from this is to praise others for their efforts over their intelligence to help them perform better. But how does this help me personally? And how is this a mindset? Well, if you can praise others, you can praise yourself for the effort and the hard work you put in, especially in life, as only you see when you are alone working away. And when you show your work to others, no one knows how much work you put in. And the current society praises your talent, intelligence, and they mean well. They truly mean well, but it undermines your work and effort. So praise yourself for trying, for putting in the work. Not only will this reroute your reward pathways from just getting good results to now getting rewards or dopamine from just putting in the effort, and it's also a shift to not putting so much importance on the result, as that is something you can't always control. And when you can't control something, it's going to make you go crazy. But you can control the amount of time and effort you put into something. So instead of focusing on how smart you look to yourself or someone else, being focused on the work you put in will be a much better internal motivator, and it'll push you and reward you for trying harder problems and challenges. And honestly, this is where true skill and mastery arrive from. For me, before watching Huberman and hearing this study, I would get praise and praise myself that I'm so smart, intelligent, and that I would not need to work hard at anything, and I would still get what I want. But honestly, looking back at it, I did good in school, but I put in no effort. And this view that I was talented and did not need to work hard backfired on a lot of things I did. As any wall I would hit that I could not climb over with my quote-unquote talent, I would stop trying or lie that I was not interested in anymore. And the story I have with that is, I used to play viola, and honestly, I love playing a string instrument. And in my class, we would have seating arrangements, and we would test for those seats. And I would practice, and I improved. But once seating arrangements came out, I was fourth seat, sitting right behind the first seat. And for someone who thought I was talented, and I even put in some work to get there, that I should be first seat, but I was not. And that was pretty heartbreaking. And unfortunately, I slowly started to hate viola, and I slowly stopped practicing, stopped trying, and slowly and surely dropping seats until I was close to the bottom. This was one of the instances of my life I immediately thought of when I heard this study. And I have many more similar stories, I hate to admit, but I'm not going to bore you with them. Unfortunately, there is no happy ending for that story. I did not pick up viola again and become a brilliant viola player, but I have at least decided to use that as fuel to work on myself and change my praise to rewarding the effort I put in to the things I care about, not what my results are going to be. And the quote-unquote talent I've exhibited by doing this thing, the effort is the journey. It matters the most. It's the effort that counts, and it's something you can control. The hike is what matters. The view from the summit of Mount Everest is cool and a good byproduct, but the hike up your local mountain is just as good and fulfilling if you view the hike as the reward. Then onto stress is enhancing. If you believe this, stress will help you perform better and give you a better sense of fulfillment. And if you believe the opposite, stress is debilitating, stress will make you perform worse. So I believe stress is enhancing, and this mindset can be applied to a variety of different emotions or feelings. It's all about reframing your state of mind to view that thing to be a positive or as a marker to do something about it. But don't get me wrong, stress is enhancing, but it follows a bell curve where no stress harms us, and there is an optimal amount of stress where we can cope, manage our stress, and helps us perform better. And then when we have too much stress, we perform worse. It negatively affects us mentally and physically. But at this point, we don't want to completely de-stress back to zero stress. We want to go back to that optimal stress. This is something everyone needs to play with and figure out on their own. But what I have done is to start from little to no stress and then slowly walk your way up the stress levels by adding one more task at a time, taking one more piece of responsibility at work, in life, at school, etc. And then let yourself accommodate to that level of stress until you get used to it. And then you can go up a step. And then the human mind and the body are pretty good at adapting. So you may find your previous levels of optimal stress not stress inducing enough, or the opposite. So experiment with it, play with it. Everyone's gonna make mistakes. It's fine. Trying and building on that effort to better yourself is the key. This is the learning, focus, memory, and neuroplasticity section. But first, I want to talk about the fundamentals of how to induce learning, focusing, retaining things in memory, and increasing neuroplasticity. Then some practical steps and some of the steps I took to get where I am today. First, your brain is made up of neurons, and these neurons connect to each other. And you can either strengthen or weaken neuron connections. And there are rare cases of gaining new neurons, but they're rare. Then once these connections strengthen, that region of the brain grows bigger. The main point is that the strengthening and weakening of your neural connections is the basis of learning, memory, and neuroplasticity. Now that you know this concept, the best way to strengthen a connection is to do that activity repeatedly. And the best way to weaken a connection is to stop doing that activity. Now, how do we induce a state of learning and neuroplasticity? You need a combination of alertness, focus, some agitation of your brain, and make whatever you are doing important to your brain. And the basis of learning is to correct the errors that happen during these focus bouts. So dig into the feeling of frustration and continue to correct the errors, as that is what makes your brain plastic and allows it to change and learn. And then we want to learn over a long period of time. Learn consistently, and this is the best way to retain and learn information, comparing to just cramming the information in a short period of time. Couple all of this with the ultradian cycle that was discussed earlier. Quality sleep, as sleeping will stamp down all the learning and the changes that happened today. All of this is, from what I have gathered, the best concepts that align with the scientific literature and our biology to best increase learning and inducing neuroplasticity. Now onto the practical steps that I implement to induce this neuroplasticity. Well, a bit more preamble. Generally, if you are in a high alert state, you are in a optimal state to implement a task. You enter the state usually when you're well rested and focused. So when you're in a high alert state, it's better to work in silence. You're more biased towards action, to go, and have a harder time suppressing inaction, not to go. In low alert states, you have the opposite, and it can help to have some background noise to raise your alertness. This leads into creativity, which is taking what you already know and rearranging them in a novel way, and has two parts. Discovery mode, which is more relaxed. It's an open floor of discovery and exploration of thoughts and ideas, and the best way to get here is to be more relaxed, low alert, and in a sleepy-ish state. Builder mode, this is more of a linear mode where you take ideas and realize this design to reality and build it out. The best way to get here is being in an alert state. Then the big idea is to view any action or tool you're doing and ask, is it making you more alert or calm? What state is optimal for the things you want to do right now? And what can you do to get you in the optimal state for what you are doing? Now I want to take a deeper look at what the timeline of a focus session kind of looks like. First is that it usually takes a little time, like 2 to 5 minutes, to really allow yourself to get into deep focus into literally anything. So don't expect to be able to just drop into a focus mode. There is some preparation that needs to be done to be able to really dig deep and focus. If you think about the concepts we talked about earlier, there needs to be certain chemicals in your brain to induce focus. So the beginning is always super hard for this reason. Your brain does not have the optimal chemical environment to go into a focus mode, but there are some great ways to induce this state quicker. First, do not multitask. It is very detrimental to focus, memory, and doing good deep work because it interrupts this rev up time that is needed to really get the ball rolling to focus on something. Second, use your intention to control your attention. Use it to keep your attention on something for a while, and that really helps to build a strong connection to the subject and gets you really focused and in the zone. Third is to ask questions. Ask questions to yourself makes you want to find the answers, and then this prompts the release of dopamine. Then depending on how curious you are about the question, it prompts even more dopamine. And this combination of curiosity and dopamine creates a great environment for remembering things, learning, focusing, and it naturally makes it easier to work on things you have questions about. Do not think that just because you have gone over the beginning hump that you will not lose focus throughout the focus session. You will have dips and peaks of attention, but when you do dip, keep in mind these methods and also find your own methods to keep your attention in these sessions. Prolonged focus sessions are very fun and fulfilling, especially when you're doing stuff you like, but some folks may have a hard time starting off with so much time, and for me that was the case. I did not immediately start off with 2-hour focus sessions. It comes about through consistent effort and a framework too. There are a bunch of techniques to increase structure times online, so pick whatever works work best for you. And as an example, for me, I did the Pomodoro technique, which is a time management framework where you focus on something for 25 minutes. Then after you give yourself a short break, like 5 minutes, then you repeat. I did this for a while, and when I got comfortable and wanted to go longer, I would increase my working times by 5 minutes-ish and increasing my break times by 1 minute. So I would go like 30-minute work time, 6-minute break, then increment to 40 work, 7 break, 45 work, 8 break, etc. And then I would adapt to those times and play around with what felt good to me. And eventually got to my current format of 2-hour focus sessions and 15-minute break times. Now here are some more science-backed ways to better learn, gain new skills, build better memory, and induce neuroplasticity practice. Do the practical things, not just theory, as practicing strengthens this neural pathway for that skill, and doing it consistently strengthens it even more. Then teaching others or teaching yourself is a great way to stamp down knowledge, iterate on, and be able to think of the material in a different way, make it simpler, however you want to teach people. Then immediately testing yourself on the information you learn is also a wonderful and proven way to retain more information and learn. And yes, testing seems bad, but in this context, you're just learning here. And if you get it wrong, just understand why you got it wrong. You're not being graded, and this is a great way to learn. So understand why you got it wrong, how you got it wrong, and then error correct. And then also visualizing and trying to recall the information immediately instead of just trying to reread the information over and over again is also very effective to retaining that information. This is more miscellaneous, but still good information. Be open-minded and continue to put yourself in novel situations with novel ideas, new people, and you'll be energized in these situations, and it will develop your neuroplasticity extremely well, and you'll learn a ton. Then you can exercise early in the day. Usually, if you want to induce this effect within the first 3 hours of waking up, it helps you wake up earlier, heightens your mental acuity and alertness in the later afternoons and evenings, and it also helps trigger the go pathway and gives you more energy throughout the day. This is the exercise section. I want to first, as always, go over concepts, benefits, and how to view exercises. First is to really enjoy the training. Do it for a greater reason than just doing it to live longer and more efficient life. Train to do something else better or whatever else you want to do and have fun with it. Same applies to food. Blend the exercise, fitness, and nutrition into your life, but you don't need to obsess over it. Just live your life. And as we grow older, we lose muscle mass and we start to lose control over our bodies. So when we work out and when we design exercise goals, we should think of the things we want to be able to do when we are old, like playing a sport or lifting up your grandkids. Whatever it is, have those in mind and work out and grow muscle and be able to combat your natural degradation of muscle to be able to do those things in the future. And another core concept is muscles are to be challenged. So when we work out or exercise, the point of it is to challenge the muscle to cause the body to adapt, to get stronger, so it can survive better next time. And for things related to mobility and flexibility, here are some things to keep in mind. Doing things on the floor is great. Don't worry about how you look when you get up or get off the floor. Just being on the ground, do the movements on the ground, and doing things on the ground at least once a day is great because it resets your joints, resets your body, and really feel your movements and be aware of how you move. And then layer and play with your warm-ups. Try to move in weird but safe ways and continue to play with your movements. Find your movement patterns and work on the ones you're weak in, but be careful of your posture and your speed. And remember, speed kills, so go slow. As you saw earlier, I followed Huberman's schedule and I tweaked it to my schedule. And if you're trying to make your own schedule, I would say the core exercises or some sort of HIIT routine, resistance training, long cardio, and explosive training. So layer those types of exercises in your week somehow. And on that note, Andy Galvin suggested following the schedule of 3 to 5 days, each day doing 3 to 5 exercises for 3 to 5 sets with 3 to 5 reps, and ideally finishing the workouts in 30 minutes to an hour. Then when I exercise, I like to picture the muscle and really try to feel the muscle moving. And that comes with good form, but also learning to activate that muscle. And for some, it's hard to activate some muscle groups, but keep trying. It's a learning process. Another big concept is what Gabriel Lyon said. Sentience is a disease. So I try to walk and do it in little chunks because according to what Lyon has said, the effects of walking every 30 minutes for 2 minutes is better than walking every 6 hours for 30 minutes. So it's better to have small chunks of movement over small intervals than big chunks of movement over big intervals. On this understanding, there are great benefits to doing exercise snacks, which are small bouts of exercise done throughout the day, like doing 20 jumping jacks, 20 air squats, etc. And here are some benefits of exercises other than just boosting overall health, muscle gain, cardiovascular health, etc. Exercise helps offset a poor night of sleep and can improve it. It can improve your brain's level of arousal, making it easier to learn, memorize things, and having this happen before or after will significantly boost your learning. Exercise is also a great great way and safe way to do something you don't want to do. And it's challenging you physically, psychologically, and this is great for your brain because it pushes you to do stuff you do not want to do. And this increases your grit, your tenacity, which are great for your brain. But be careful. You don't need to overdo exercising. Same as stress, kind of. The benefits of exercises follow more of a bell curve, and you not only get diminishing returns, but other aspects of your life may also suffer if you do too much exercise or not enough. This is the nutrition section, and I understand that food is very tied to everyone's life. It is deeply personal, very dependent on personal circumstance, and is deeply baked into people's beliefs and society. So I will be mainly talking about what I do, what I have gathered is good for the body, and certain goals. I myself do not stick to any diets, but I do keep certain things in mind and am careful of what I consume, how much and how consistently I consume things. So first, as I say, I avoid consuming alcohols, artificially sugary products, including snacks, beverages, processed foods, fast foods, and try to keep to nutrient-dense, whole and natural foods, or at least things with simple ingredient lists. I focus on these main things: high-quality proteins, healthy fats, fibers, and some carbs. Having these helps me with my satiety, so I'm not as hungry, especially since I fast and eat 2 meals a day, and it helps me manage my weight and get to my goals. However you get these, as long as it follows your values and does not include the things I've said to avoid, is good. And what I do as well, I prioritize high quality protein to help with muscle maintenance, growth, and fat loss. We also want to eat foods that have essential fibers, nutrients, healthy fats, and oils to support the rest of our body systems. Meal timing can also influence energy and focus, so consuming fibers and proteins and carbs early in the day may enhance performance, while starches later can aid in sleep. I spoke about my phone usage earlier, but I do really want to reiterate some points because I think this behavior change has been one of the bigger improvements in my ability to control my time and my focus. So first, I try not to have my phone near me when doing things that are demanding of my attention or things that I want to enjoy the moment of, because I view my phone as a bundle of interesting things I can tap into anytime. And that's what makes my phone irresistible. So I try not to look at it when I'm focusing, working, having conversation, learning, having fun, etc. And when Cal Newport said that if you take everything out of your phone, social media, entertaining sites, etc., the phone is actually just a pretty high-tech box. That weirdly changed how I viewed my phone, and I understood what was sapping my focus and time were those apps. As I said earlier, I'm not as determined as Newport is, so I still have those social media apps, but I just have systems to keep them in check when I go too far. I use routes to block apps and make me sneakily going into them through the browser. I also set up time restraints on the native iOS system, so when I do go to other sites, I at least know how much time I'm spending on them and giving myself a reminder I've been here a bit too long. Another big thing is I try to keep my phone face down on Do Not Disturb and away from me when I'm about to go to sleep and waking up. And I have my phone far away enough where I have to get out of my bed to use it. And I'll say, this sucks. Sometimes I just look at my phone and I'm like, damn, I could be looking at something cool. But then I catch myself thinking, what am I doing? Everything is blocked and it's too much work for me to get unblocked, so I'll just think. And that's slowly becoming the norm for me, and it really sucked at first. But it's slowly not sucking, and it's a better norm for me, at least. For supplements, I don't do anything crazy. I take 5 grams of creatine monohydrate with 50 grams of protein powder, 2,000 milligrams of fish oil, 1,000 IU of vitamin D3, and 1 multivitamin every day, usually during my lunch. And I'll just briefly go over the benefits of these things. The benefits of creatine monohydrate are it increases muscle growth, strength, and overall athletic performance, aids in muscle recovery, and can potentially contribute to fat loss, supports cognitive performance, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for concentration and focus, can improve mood and alleviate symptoms of depression, has some emerging evidence suggesting benefits for bone health, and from what I've seen and heard, the side effects are very minimal to null. The benefits of additional protein in this case stimulate protein synthesis, which is crucial for maintaining muscle health and promoting growth, and helps me regulate appetite throughout the day. The benefits of fish oils are the improvement of mood, joint health, health and overall well-being. The benefits of vitamin D3 are maintaining and enhancing immune system operations. It's vital for maintaining healthy bones and preventing diseases such as osteoporosis, and improves mental health. I take a multivitamin to make up for any vitamins or nutrients I'm missing of that day. And I know there are a bunch of other supplements I'm very aware of, but I just choose not to take them unless I see a very compelling case for them. And I also don't have that much money to drop on them, so I try to focus on behaviors more to get to my goals. But if you would like to experiment, go for it. I'm not your doctor, but as Huberman said, I would consult your doctor. And hey, I'm always looking to improve and to hear feedback. So if the protocols work for you or don't, let me know in the comments and I'll send them straight to Huberman. JK. But if there are some protocols that have helped you change your life, let us know in the comments and hopefully that will help others improve their lives. Maybe I'll even implement some of those protocols and make an update video on those. Maybe. If you would like more information or want to search up more curated protocols for yourself, I suggest going to Huberman's website. The link is in the description, and if you want to find the clips or episodes where I got my information for the sections, they're also in the description. And the AI feature on the website is super helpful in searching for what you want to learn about, and also gives you the clips to watch. And Andrew Huberman, if you're watching this, it would be crazy if you were, but nonetheless, I want to thank you and your amazing team for all the hard work, love, and passion you put into the podcast. And thank you sincerely for showcasing all the amazing guests' knowledge, hard work, and the guests who are sharing their hard work and the amazing knowledge of their colleagues' hard work as well. And people, we stand on top of the shoulders of our species, of the amazing people past and present who pioneered, who dare to try. And for the people of the future, they will stand on our shoulders one day. So let's make it a nice place to stand. I have been affected only in the most amazing ways and positive ways by this podcast. I may not have benefited immediately by all the episodes, but every episode is still a treat to me. And the constant knowledge transfer, the repetition of knowledge, and the foraging for new knowledge will always be loved and appreciated. For those who are curious, I implore you, the podcast has an amazing array of subjects, guests, and all of them are filled with amazing knowledge, years of hard work, careful studies, and thought out ways to help people learn about their biologies in life. So go scour, forage for what you are curious about, and you may find that perfect nugget. If not, maybe request it, or go find that knowledge out yourself. As they say, it starts off bad now, but I have no idea how it will end. And that is the end of Vlog 1, how my life changed after watching all of the episodes of the Huberman Lab Podcast.